I just came back from a long road trip last night, so I do apologize if I sound a little tired, but we've got to talk about a few concerning things on this channel that transpired while I was away. After former Intrepid Studios CEO Stephen Sharif lost his motions against the board in the April hearing that he doesn't seem to care to mention much, both the board's and Stephen's legal representatives were ordered by the judge to essentially handle negotiations over receiver themselves and not bother the court about it unless they couldn't compromise for whatever reason. We've covered this extensively, especially when we were doing our coverage of Stephen Sharif's side of the story in the unusual 400-page motion for a receiver. On Wednesday, April 29th, Stephen made an appeal in the public court of opinion, basically stating that he wants a court-appointed receiver to be involved in handling Intrepid Studios in coordination with his legal representation and the board's legal representation. He claimed that the board is not willing to appoint a third-party receiver to not inspect documents, depth history, records, and so on. He alleges that the board is afraid of what may be uncovered, and that he's fighting to protect 10 years of dedication, sacrifice, and belief in Ashes of Creation. He even commented on our coverage of his side of the story, along with the declarations, hearsay or not, made by other individuals and parties supporting his story, saying, "You should ask yourself, why would the board oppose the appointment of a neutral third-party officer of the court as a receiver with the power to inspect books, agreements, records, and then act on the company's behalf? If what the board says is true, and their ledger is accurate that I embezzled money from Intrepid, why would I be the one asking the judge to appoint a receiver over Intrepid? With the power to investigate the books and records, why wouldn't the board want that? Why are they fighting against it in court? Need to think critically here. It's because what they allege is a lie, and what they did will not withstand legal scrutiny, much like how they reversed course on their unlawful foreclosure in the face of an almost certain injunction." Again, at this point, I offered Stephen the same platform to answer the questions he's put forth, as I am not involved in this legal case, nor am I a lawyer. I've offered every other individual or party in any story we've covered the same platform, but was again ignored, and I'm mentioning this yet again because people are now again accusing me of being inherently biased towards one voice or the other, and asking me why am I not talking to Stephen, but talking to everybody else. Again, I can't force anyone to talk or not talk to me, as hard as that might be to believe. Sometime after, the Nevada lawsuit alleging Stephen and his husband John Moore had embezzled millions of dollars that was filed by the board under the entity TFE Games was jointly dismissed by all involved parties without prejudice, meaning that it may or may not come back. I'm not a lawyer, but based on the legal speculation surrounding that lawsuit, there seems to be arguments that TFE's Nevada lawsuit was in the wrong jurisdiction, that TFE is no longer irrelevant or relevant to the litigation because all of the assets are back in Intrepid as a legal entity, and so on. Stephen Sharif took to the official Ashes of Creation Discord and subreddit yet again, claiming a moral and legal victory, stating, "The lawsuit filed against me and John has now been dismissed. This was always a completely fabricated lawsuit claiming that we had misappropriated money from Intrepid, harmed the company, or somehow caused the collapse that Rob Dawson and his board created. Those allegations were false when they filed them, false when they pushed them into the public narrative, and false when used as a distraction to cover for the board's conduct. Now the case they used to fuel that narrative has been dismissed. This complete farce of a lawsuit was part of a broader scheme to control the narrative by muddying the waters and distracting from the highly unlawful actions now laid out in our federal lawsuit against Rob Dawson and his cronies. While employees were thrown into chaos, vendors and creditors were left out in the cold, and the Ashes of Creation community was left searching for answers. The board and all its allies pushed a story designed to make us the villains so people wouldn't focus on the truth of this catastrophe and what the board had actually done. Their strategy was never built to withstand scrutiny. How could it be? The facts tell a different story, facts they knew they could not contain for long. The evidence we have put before the federal court shows the conduct they so desperately want hidden. It shows a board that sees control through threats and coercion, manufactured secured debt that had already been converted into equity, used that manufactured debt structure to find insolvency and steal Intrepid's assets, falsified public records, failed to notify a senior secured lender and banking institution, tried to transfer Ashes of Creation into a Dawson-controlled entity, and then left hundreds of hardworking families to suffer the consequences in a gross violation of labor laws. That is the outrageous conduct they did not want the public focused on. That is why they needed a distraction. As shown in witness testimony and the public filings, their plan was not subtle. They orchestrated a scheme to take Intrepid's assets and then conspired to have Jason Karamanis push distorted narratives through his online mouthpiece. so that the public conversation would revolve around the ridiculous accusations against me and John instead of unlawful foreclosure, their despicable treatment of employees and their families, and their attempt to walk away from the catastrophic damage they caused. They wanted confusion. They wanted outrage pointed in the wrong direction. They wanted the community fighting over false claims while they attempted to salvage control of the asset they tried to seize. This is a common playbook for them. What they did to the Intrepid team was inhuman. What they did to the community was cruel. What they did to our reputation was deliberate. They took a project that millions of people were waiting for, a team that had spent years building it, and a company with real value and momentum, and they treated all of it as collateral in a private insider power play to line their pockets and leave everyone else holding the bag. Then, they tried to blame the wreckage on the very people who had worked tirelessly for a decade trying to deliver the game they promised. I will never allow that to stand. Their lawsuit is now dismissed. My federal lawsuit against them remains active. I will not rest until the harm is done to the team, Intrepid stakeholders, the Ashes of Creation community, and the millions of fans who believed in this project is answered for. They tried to bury the truth under lawsuits, threats, public smears, shell entities, and manufactured confusion. They failed. The truth is moving into court, into the record, and into the light. There will be maximum accountability. Anyway, now that you're all caught up, same as me, the board's lawyer, Sam Schwartz, actually reached out to me with a comment, essentially replying to Stephen Sharif's recent public announcements, and I believe he reached out to someone else as well. Sam Schwartz says, TFE has agreed to litigate the claims between the parties in San Diego rather than Las Vegas. TFE continues to prosecute its claims against Mr. Sharif and Mr. Moore, who each took and continue to take steps to destroy the value of Intrepid Studios and Ashes of Creation, including treating Intrepid as their personal piggy bank before it stopped operating. TFE and its predecessors invested over $100 million into Intrepid for the benefit of the game and the gaming community. Mr. Sharif and Mr. Moore seem bent on destroying that investment, no matter who is harmed as a result. Conversely, TFE is working tirelessly to restart operations and ultimately deliver Ashes of Creation to the gaming industry. That last part, as with any statement from any party in any legal case, should be taken with a grain of salt. But yeah, so it sounds like while the Nevada lawsuit is being dropped for the time being and not being refiled or anything, the board and its legal representation intends on pursuing potentially a new lawsuit in California rather than Nevada. After Steven's proclamation of victory on both the subreddit and Discord server for Ashes of Creation, some comments and events directed at our coverage through platforms such as YouTube, Discord, and even gaming news website Massively OP took said proclamation of victory as a hard fact rather than doing a few seconds of research or just waiting for the legal case to play out. For example, the Massively OP article writer Bree Royce frames Stephen's proclamation as another win, but as far as I'm aware, based on court transcripts and actual statements from Judge Linda Lopez herself, there hasn't really been any legal victory in Stephen's favor. His motion for a preliminary injunction after the March and April hearings was denied by the judge. His motion to dismiss the opposition's legal counsel was denied as well. The temporary restraining order was dissolved in favor of TFE, and even after the 400 pages of exhibits and declarations claiming threats of physical and emotional violence filed by Stephen's lawyer, the judge shrugged and said a foreclosure was fine and still on the table as long as the board didn't do it the same shady way they tried the first time. Second, in reference to Stephen mentioning me not by name yet again as the online mouthpiece of Jason or the board or the employees or whoever's next on the list, Massively OP seems to be suggesting I'm also in a certain segment of gamers getting weird over obviously incomplete and misleading leaks. I don't know how much research the editor-in-chief did, but as the person who is just publishing anything they can in the best ethical journalistic way possible as an amateur, I have yet to be shown any single thing that has disproven all of the documents, text messages, numbers, and everything else we've taken great care in publishing as a team as blatantly false. Not a single thing has been shown to be blatantly untrue to the best of my knowledge. Not the $220,000 in DoorDash expenses, not the debated existence of a private chef who reached out to me for an interview, by the way, not the words of former developers who talked about what they experienced at Intrepid Studios. Not a single concrete, irrefutable piece of evidence has been presented suggesting that I am deliberately publishing things or discussing things that are untrue. And by the way, my following did not double from 20,000 to 40,000 subscribers since covering Ashes of Creation's implosion. I think I was at 42,000, now we're barely over 45,000, which is easily verified by checking public stats on most websites. Anyway, it's been interesting to see the uptick in vitriol against me, suggesting that I'm only covering one side of the story, when in fact, at least in my opinion, there are multiple sides to the story. Again, I made a previous video showing my related financials, being as transparent as possible, and the things I've published, including the Intrepid Studios ledger, apparently pissed off everybody on both legal sides, which disproves that there is some sort of elaborate, coordinated conspiracy alleged by Steve and Sharif. I've continued to be very candid, answering anyone's questions about either my creative process or the things we've had to process very publicly. So if that's all still not enough, I'm not exactly sure what else is needed at this point, so feel free to let me know down in the comments below. And despite rejecting my coverage as outright false, most of the court filings, even from Steven's side, who has thanked me multiple times at this point for said coverage while also attacking my character, which again is really confusing, has corroborated the timelines and the documents we reported on and released to the general public, including the whole thing we published about Riot Games being a potential buyer that other news outlets picked up on. So many people thought that was bullshit and that I was making things up, but here we are with that same information being used in court and in social media to somehow discredit our ongoing coverage, funnily enough. I'm also just bewildered and confused by how so many people seem to just be incredibly forgetful of a whole list of basic information that magically seems to go away whenever one side or the other makes a statement. Why are the people who claim to care about employees still not being given what they're due, forgetting about the exhibit allegedly showing a board member saying they want to skirt labor laws and not pay PTO and so on? Why are people who claim to care about the truth are also forgetting about the fact that an individual who claimed to be a billionaire gamer who made most of his wealth from real estate, self-funding an entire MMORPG on multiple occasions on video, and that the project had or will never have a board of or investors to answer to, is now in litigation against people that shouldn't have existed. I also am a bit bothered by the fact that dozens of people who are in both my Discord server and the Ashes of Creation Discord server that used to have over 200,000 people who have never even commented anything negative or at all, even in the Ashes server, are being banned for merely associating with me by being in my Discord server. I don't know what part of customer service in any industry ever would even do something like this. As Steven is announcing he's fighting for the community, he seems to be suppressing at the same time. But as someone who has been banned from both the Discord and subreddit personally by Steven Sharif himself for simply relaying legal updates, I'm also confused as to how someone who no longer is employed by the company seems to have the time to either scour other Discord servers on alt accounts or actively engage with people reporting the names of those in other servers and make questionable moderation decisions for that said company. I think what's happening though right now is, in terms of the bigger picture, at least two camps are forming, which is bizarre in itself, to be honest, as I feel like the consensus even a month ago seemed to be that we all should, wait for the legal case to play out while also drawing our own conclusions, irrespective of whatever position we held, from information that anyone is able to publish, from interviews or whatever. I think things are going to get even more intense, and as unfortunate as it is, I'm not going to get intimidated or bullied into not continuing our coverage on Ashes. But of course, I also want to cover other things and stories as we have been. Also looking forward to playing some more Marathon, and even, checking out Subnautica too, as I'm a big fan of Subnautica. But as always, if you want updates on this or other stories, definitely subscribe to the channel, and I will see you around.